Zeydra has been one of the most overhyped DLC units so far for Gundam Versus, and in today's video we're going to quickly go over the pros and cons for him. But before we get into Zeydra himself, the additional things you obtain by buying him are 4 strikers and the same BGM that you get for buying Age 1 if you didn't buy him already. It's also worth noting that all of these strikers suck, but one striker specifically is useful for melee trolling, I suppose, if you're into that kind of thing. Anyways, let's dive into Zeydra by first starting off with the bad stuff. Zeydra has a very basic kit that wasn't really altered that much in comparison to his maxi boost on counterpart. Some noticeable changes are of course taking out the assist that used to come out of his CSA and replacing it with an average landing punish shot. Additionally, he also gained a CSB that is a beam barrier melee, because that seems to be a common trend for Bamco lately when it comes to DLC. But to be fair, it does allow him to close in on trigger happy players by of course blocking beam attacks during the attack animation. Those are really the only big changes they've done to Zeydra in comparison to his maxi boost on counterpart, honestly. One would think Zeydra would benefit greatly from more weapons, right? Well, not exactly. The issue here is that due to Gundam Versus' mechanics, he has to put in extra effort, despite gaining more weapons due to his general playstyle, that pretty much consists of spamming A into AB, which by itself isn't exactly the greatest at tracking. To elaborate even more, ever since step diving has been introduced, many kits that once shined in previous versions start to slightly fall off in this game. It makes it very difficult for Zeydra to actually deal consistent damage if everybody is always avoiding all of his attacks due to just spamming step dive. This marks the downfall of Zeydra. He doesn't suffer drastically by step diving that much, to be fair, but it definitely shows whenever you attempt to land an AC or go about with his basic range rotation. When you really examine the stats for his AC, one will notice that it kind of sucks. If this were maxi, it would be way easier to punish poor movement with this ability. But since people can step dive their problems away in this game, this makes this ability not really worth risking HP due to being put into a vernier state. On top of that, it doesn't help very much that the AC itself is still a stationary Gerobi that cannot be moved. It's not that the attack itself has a slow startup, but the muzzle correction on it, along with the beam size when you're not in the X-Rounder buff, is absolutely atrocious. I mean, even the Gerobi comes out too slow, which makes it very difficult to punish movement when you compare it to other Gerobis in the game. There were countless times where I knew I aimed a proper Gerobi punishment, but missed because the beam size is way too small and the Gerobi itself travels a bit too slow to actually punish people mid-range. Now, this is only truly a problem when you try to use the AC against experienced players. But if you were to use this on an average or below player, then you probably wouldn't even notice a thing, to be honest, because many people still unfortunately do not use consistent step dives. So if you're the type of player who only plays with other new players, then this issue does not really concern you that much, to be honest. You'll notice that I've mentioned the X-Rounder buff, correct? Well, that is the BC for this unit, and it basically grants several buffs to his actual base stats and weapon stats. So these are the major buffs that you receive when you actually use the BC. Your boost dash count is increased from 7 to 9 with enhanced mobility. You now get 2 ACs instead of 1 that deal about 30 additional damage with bigger beam size. Your CSA is now stronger and your sub-weapon now fires 15 bullets from 10. Your melee is now easier to confirm with. And lastly, you gain access to the famous kick ability that behaves differently based on the input direction you give it. 4-6 BC will allow you to do a quick dodge in the respective direction and then perform a kick. Neutral BC will simply just go straight to a kick. Some advice that I can give about this is that when you're in green lock range, you can use a neutral BC to grant quick movement to travel around the map. And 2-8 BC will allow you to actually perform a hop and then a kick. So basically, whenever you get the buff, you can spice up your movement by using 2 BC and step dive at the same time in order to dodge basic spam. You can also whiff the super in green lock range to immediately be put into the buff as well, which is very similar to the unicorn suits when it comes to supering and granting immediate NTD. When it comes to melee, Zeydra is just fairly average. Here's some footage for the various melee routes that you can do with it, including the burst attack.
この手が開いてみせる未来への扉をとっやらせるかおのれ打たせてもらおう 守るべき者たちのため今はこの手で開いてみせる未来への扉をこれで沈め
The biggest problem about Zeydra when it comes to playing online is that he doesn't really do anything that will make somebody be cautious of him that much. He's pretty much like a fly. They're super fucking annoying by always pestering you. But you know they're not really a big threat, so you don't really care about it that much. Zeydra doesn't have any abilities that people would see as a huge threat. That's the issue here. Take Full Armor Double Zeta for example. You know he's iconic for nuke ghetto B damage if you ignore him, correct? Well, what is there really to be scared of when you face a Zeydra? Absolutely nothing. Zeydra is just an average suit that I would see fall under B tier at most due to how empty he feels in the match. He just doesn't have anything that will allow you to just deal quick and reliable damage. Now, those are all of the bad things I found about Zeydra that are also the honest gameplay cons for the suit as well. When it comes to the actual pros for this DLC, it would honestly only be the actual aesthetic that the suit has going for it. Whenever the suit moves, you'll notice that it creates this pretty sick purple animation. And not only that, but the sound effects for this suit is pretty cool to hear as well. So probably one of my favorite things about this suit is being able to go into your X rounder buff mode, right? And then you're actually able to land a kick as the final blow to the enemy team. Like, that's pretty sick to achieve, and it may seem like it doesn't take much work, but it's actually pretty risky to do in general because you don't have really much any defense when you use it against someone because they can easily just step it and punish you for it. So the act by itself is a pretty daunting one, and if you were to actually succeed, then you'll be rewarded with a pretty edgy finish. In addition to that, apparently the voice actor for the suit is also Tieria from 00 and Yato for Noragami, which is one of my favorite animes of all time. So I found that to be actually really fucking cool, to be honest. Notice how all these personal likes are just once again the aesthetic that the suit has going for it. I truly do feel like if you enjoyed this guy from the show, or you just like edgy shit in general, then this guy would be for you. But if you're one of the more serious players and want something more useful for TF matches, then I'd suggest skipping this guy. Overall, Zeydra is not exactly garbage, nor is he extremely good, but instead seems to sit a little in the middle. So that's about it. I gave my honest opinion about Zeydra, so really the final decision on getting him is up to you guys now. On a final note, I don't know about you guys, but overall I'm kind of tired of receiving subpar DLC units at the price of $5, albeit that there are fighting games out there that charge much more for their DLC. But I honestly feel like Bamco could put forth more effort into doing a proper rework for pre-existing suits that made their way into Gundam Versus as DLC. But yeah guys, that's about it for today's video. As always, if you would like to join my Discord to learn the game in a chill environment, then feel free to click the link down below to join. There are plenty of new players to chat/play with, and we're even recently starting to update our guide database for them as well. Also, if you're interested in improving at the game and to also learn more about DLC from an experienced player, then feel free to subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you guys in the comment section to discuss DLC affairs, and with that being said, I'll see you guys later.
うちのやり方はこうなんだぜ。
キヨリン、助けて！
次号ゼトックです。
いいよそれ。東京湾に沈めて。